Dale, Dale, daylight come and me one go home.
Day.
Man, I love that stupid song. Well, I was thought about singing the Jump in the Line, the Rock Your Body and Dance.
Actually, I think I prefer that one.
Rock your body, child. But either way, Harry Belafonte, gotta love him. All right, now that we got that out of our system, we can move on. Good evening and welcome to Yesteryear podcast. My name is James and I'm here with my ever awesome, ever talented, totally tubular co-host Beth. Hey Beth, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing very well. It's been a good day, been a good weekend. So we're 3 episodes in and doing pretty good in my opinion. How do you feel so far?
I feel pretty good. This being our 4th episode now, I think. I mean, we have really cool listeners from all over the place now. I mean, everywhere, almost.
Yeah, all over the world.
Yeah, creepy.
Very cool, indeed. Oh, well, we got an awesome one to round out number 4 with. Today we'll be reviewing Beetlejuice. Can you believe that Beetlejuice was released the same year as Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They seem a world apart in function and creation, don't they?
It really, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
I guess that's what having a bigger budget can do for you.
Oh, for sure. This one had, what, $15,000? Or $15 million, my bad. Oops.
Yeah.
But $15 million compared to, I think that one had, what, $2 million.
Yep. 1988 was also another Tom Cruise heavy year, with Rain Man and Cocktail both coming in, just to mention, because we always seem to want to talk about Tom Cruise in our show. But enough about that.
That man's a legend.
One year before Michael Keaton would don the uniform of the Caped Crusader in Batman, he would bring us chills and thrills as the ghastly character named Beetlejuice. So yeah, 1 year later, there he was. And he also with Tim Burton as well. So maybe not at the time, but definitely come to be a movie with an all-star cast. Beetlejuice would. So you've got Alec Baldwin, you've got Gina Davis. They play the Maitlands, Adam and Barbara. Jeffrey Jones and Catherine O'Hara play Charles and Delia Dietz. We also have Winona Ryder as Lydia Dietz, and as stated, Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. Side players in the movie, such as Glenn Shaddix, Rip, he's Otho, and Robert Goulet as Maxie Dean. They help round out the story. Show what kind of people that the Dietzes are, which is really the core issue in the movie. You know, is seeing it because, you know, them coming from New York, being the yuppie-ish type people and stuff like that.
Right.
Being that the Maitlands are like, no, we don't like these people. So let's talk about the making of the film some. So Beetlejuice had a budget of $15 million, as you said, $1 million dedicated to visual effects.
Oh, wow. Only $1 million?
Only one. So it had the stop motion, prosthetic makeup, puppetry, blue screen work that all had to be done. It was always Burton's intention to keep it B-movie-esque in look and feel. And I think he accomplished that. He was even quoted as saying he wanted to keep it, he wanted it to look cheap and purposely fake. So that's how he wanted, and if you think about the movie and how it looks, I mean, there are some, it does seem a different world in the way.
Yeah.
The script did go through several rewrites that took Beetlejuice from being a shape-shifting winged demon creature who was a bit rapey. Actually, he was a lot rapey, to the troublesome pervert who we know and love today. The setting for the movie is a fictional town called Winter River. It's in Connecticut. However, all outdoor scenes are really filmed in East Corinth, Vermont. And the interior shots were all filmed in Culver City Studios in Culver City, California. So sound studio, but that's pretty much the norm. I would say moving forward from then and back. I was listening to a review of Psycho, and a lot of that was done on a soundstage. So what are you going to do? So of the movie we have done so far, I would have to say that Beetlejuice is the most successful. As I said, it did have a budget of $15 million and recouped about 3/4 of that in its opening weekend.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it killed it. It went on to gross over $73 million and was the 10th highest grossing film of 1988. What film was number 1, you ask?
What film was number one?
No, that was rhetorical.
I want to know.
Rain Man, of course,
I don't know
starring
what that is.
Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise.
Oh, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Well,
So to say that Cruise had come a long way from legend in 2 years is an understatement. So I really don't know how we always end up talking about Tom Cruise. I guess don't you say it. Don't you say he's a legend. So overall, Beetlejuice was received with good and bad reviews. On a scale of A through F, it was given a B rating and was hailed as an original and creative. One critic did wish that Michael Keaton had more screen time. And of course, Robert Ebert only gave it 2 stars. But it's kind of how it went with his ratings of this type of movie. He was always really hard on these types of movies. Then again, Beetlejuice only had a total of 17.5 minutes of screen time of 92 minutes.
oh, really?
Yep. So that might explain why we're going to, they were going to name it something else, but we'll get into that later.
I felt like he had a pretty good, like, the scenes that he was in, it seemed like it just flowed well, in my opinion.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it's filmed, and again, we'll talk about it, but the movie's called Beetlejuice, but it's not really necessarily about Beetlejuice.
That's fair.
You're not going to call a movie called Maitland's. I mean, that would be a really...
But at the same time, if you look at it, it kind of is, in a sense, because he has to come in, or they resort to using him, and then they regret it, and then he does something again,
right,
and then they regret it again, and the whole outcome is because of him. So
right.
It seems like only I guess the intro of the movie isn't about him per se, but everything else seems to be more about him.
No, he's not in it for a while.
Yeah.
So what was your initial impressions of what the movie was going to be like with the preview, the artwork? Were you excited about watching it?
Well, after I'd watched the trailer, it was kind of underwhelming. And I'm not one to watch trailers before I watch a movie typically. So this is like an interesting experience because a lot of older movies, I wouldn't watch the trailer for anyways, just watch the movie. But it takes, if I had read a book and then there was a movie being made about it, I'd watch the trailer to see how are they doing this before I actually see the movie. But if a new movie's coming out, I typically don't watch the trailer.
Now, do you consider the trailer, not to cut you off, but the trailer and the back of a book? You know how the back of a book has a little synopsis of what the book's about?
Yeah.
Do you consider them to be the same? Did you read the back of books before you read them?
I'm more of a read the first page type of person. But I guess in a sense, maybe, but not really. Yeah. If I read the back of a book, it's more of typically how they do it nowadays, it's a section from the actual book to draw you in, not of, this is what this book's about. Whereas a trailer is like that. But the trailer for this movie was kind of boring, if we're going to be honest. It throws a lot at you at once, but not really leaving much to the imagination. It kind of went through the entire movie.
Did it?
Yeah, it was kind of here's the beginning, here's the middle, here's the end of the movie. All at once.
Do you feel that movies overall do that nowadays? Or, even, I guess that would be those days, but do you feel... I feel like sometimes the best parts of movies are in the trailer, and then when you see it happen in the movie, you're kind of like, oh yeah, that was funny.
Well, okay, when I do watch a movie, and they do things like that, when I watch the actual movie itself, I didn't mean to say movie, I meant to say trailer, but when I watch the trailer and they do things like that, when I watch the actual movie, I before watching it, I try to look for those moments in the trailer, but I usually don't end up noticing it when it happens. And nowadays, trailers are really, I don't feel like they're like that in the same way. They just, it's more of a highlight reel. Here's really funny moments or really scary moments for horror movies. Yeah. So
you don't feel like with the Avengers Endgame or the Avengers and stuff like that, you don't think that it's the same? They had Ant-Man showed up and they were, you don't think that would have been something that would have been cool not to see in a trailer and have it be more
really watch a trailer for that.
Oh.
I'm not a big Avengers person.
There you go.
To be fair.
There you go. You heard it here.
I guess it kind of depends on the genre, I suppose. For superheroes, you want to show moments like that to be well, you're going to want to watch this movie because of your fan favorites, like Spider-Man or Ant-Man. They're in this movie too. Look at that. So, in that sense, yes, but with Beetlejuice, they went through and it was the entire movie all at once, minus certain parts, obviously, but...
I got you. Okay.
But
All right. So we start off with a zoom in over the town, ending at the Maitland's house. And it's kind of funny because we had just talked about this, I think, last movie with Killer Clowns, how they just jump right into the movie. They do kind of do a zoom in during the credits with this. And it's not horrible. It's not horribly long. And it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely when I first started, I loaded the movie up, and I always dread the intro because it takes forever and it goes through all these names that I don't care about. But then I saw Tim Burton, which I actually didn't know had a part in this film. I know him more for his animation movies, which I adore. But his name came up and I was like, oh, absolute legend here. And then, again, last episode we had talked about how movies have the really long intros that go on forever and ever, and it shows like the bird and then the houses that nobody cares about. And then with this one, it was actually fake, and it was actually a part of the character's like hobby, and it was interesting.
Now, could you tell it was fake when you first started watching it?
No,
See,
I hadn't realized until it showed like
the
more
giant
close up of the
spider.
grass. Oh yeah,
the giant
that's
spider
true.
crawls out from behind the house and pretty much freaks you out until you realize it's the miniature set of the entire city.
I wouldn't have handled it the same way he did.
No,
he just grabs it and puts it out the window.
Yeah, it's cool that they have that, but it's also kind of serial killer-ish to me. That you have, like...
Yeah, I thought it is kind of... Definitely is creepy, but I think that's part of Tim Burton.
Yeah.
So it's all very much him in that sense.
Well, I was saying for Adam to have a entire miniature house, setting. Could you imagine that you go over their house sometime and hey, you want to see our miniature city, and you go up there and there's like a little you standing outside of the milk store or something like that. You're like, oh my God.
There were no people in that town, just little gravestones and such. But I don't know. I guess part of me would find it charming because he had the lights shown up and everything.
Yeah,
and it was nice. But maybe a little creepy, kind of like he was planning something out.
Yeah.
But
so at this point, we're introduced to Adam and Barbara Maitland. They're a young couple and still quite playful. They're celebrating their vacation at home. Their interactions demonstrate that they're in love, seem to be very happy in life in general. It would also seem that Adam is on vacation from his hardware store.
See, and when I first watched this movie as a kid, I didn't put that together. And it still took me a second because when they go through that and they show that he goes into that store, I was like, why is he just taking money from the back cash register, stuff like that? Or he's like, he's just robbing this place up. Because originally I thought it maybe just some old person worked there and it was just in the back or something.
Gotcha.
And I didn't put it together that it was actually his store. So.
Yeah, Maitland's Hardware, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
So their fun is interrupted by Jane, who's Barbara's realtor cousin, who tells Barbara that she has an offer on the house from a nice family in New York. She also takes the time to point out that the house is the size that should have children. And we see Barbara get sad. So Barbara and Adam, after this, they head into town to the hardware store and discuss trying for kids again. So I guess that means they can have kids. They just don't have them yet. Because see, at first the way that she said it, I thought as if maybe they couldn't have kids.
Yeah, same. I thought maybe she was infertile or he was.
Right, but then he's like, well, we can try again when they're driving down. So I'm like, okay, well that's cool. At least that means, that they can at least have them, but they're not going to because they're going to die.
Right.
On their way, they do pass this mutt-looking dog on the bridge into town. Now, they get into town. I love the interaction of Ernie as Adam runs in and out of the store. Ernie's the little old man that's...
Yeah, he starts telling his story and he just runs in, not even paying attention.
He just keeps talking about something the whole way. He's just like, he's telling a story about somebody having just take a little off. Just take off a little. And he's like, just take off a little. And he's finishing the story. Adam had gone in, come back out, bye. And bye. He just go. He had no cares. I actually thought that old man was the same old man from another movie called Kingpin that came out in the 90s with Woody Harrelson in it. But when I looked it up, he didn't show him as part of it. So I guess it's not. But I could have sworn that was the same old man. Anyway, the couple head back towards the house, which of course takes them back across the bridge. They're engrossed in conversation when the muddy dog runs out in front of them, causing them to swerve and crash through the side of the bridge.
Maybe it was Merlin. From the first episode.
Right, because God forbid.
I thought the scene was kind of dumb, actually, because the dog is on the left side of the car when they swerve over, because they go to the left or the right or whatever, but he's not there. And then they look around and he's suddenly on the right of the car on that little thing and then jumps off. And then they pan on the water, and the water doesn't even look that deep for them to have died like that.
Right. They turn and see the damn dog standing on the splinter piece of wood, which is basically keeping the car from going into the water.
Right.
And then they're like, please don't move. And then the dog's all, I'm a jerk. And jump right off. So far, a little bit of character development. What do you think about who we've been introduced to?
Well, I mean, it's just like it's a country couple. I mean, there's not much to say about them yet. They're just living life, unbothered by people, trying to relax and then die stupid.
Now, what did you think about? You kind of said it. What did you actually think about the death scene in particular? Was it anticlimactic? I mean,
not all deaths are flashy, of course. So,
right.
I mean, in a sense, I think that I kind of liked that it was more of a, well, we're just dead kind of thing.
They didn't really play on it too much. So, originally, they actually showed them underwater and Barbara's arm getting stuck as they drowned horribly.
See, that's awful, but at least I would feel better about the death being, like, real, in a sense of that. Because when the car flips over,
right,
and then they go into the water, if you look at that little, like, not a river, but lake? Creek, yeah. It's a creek, like, just that. It looks like it's maybe 2 feet deep, not even.
Right. Well, I mean, you can drown in an inch of water. I mean...
if you're simple.
They're simple folk.
Oh, they're simple country folk.
Simple folk.
But I don't know. If I had seen the scene where her arm's stuck, it would have made more sense. And also, it would have gone to that little, like, well, he could have saved himself, but he stayed with her and died.
Right.
Type thing. So, I don't know.
So from here, they show them walk into the house, and they're soaked. They're talking about Barbara, her arm hurting, which is a reference to the cutscene. Because he says, "How is your arm?" And she's like, "It hurts a little," but that's why, because it was stuck, and apparently they couldn't get him out, and they drowned. They notice that a fire has started and sit by it, and Barbara's fingers catch on fire. They can see that something is seriously wrong, and Adam cannot remember how they got home. So he's going to go back to the bridge and retrack their steps. Unfortunately, when he leaves the house, he is transported to another world filled with sand and some giant monster. Sandworms, which we learn about later. At this point, we just know it's kind of creepy.
That actually terrified me as a child.
Really?
To step out of the house and then just be in a completely different world, because he steps out and the door disappears as well. He's just Sandworm Island, and it's horrible.
Right.
And I have not a fan of that at all. Yeah,
luckily Barbara reaches down and pulls him back up inside, and he's been gone for hours.
I think doesn't she like 3 hours, something around that hour? Yeah.
Yep.
Which is insane.
Yeah, while he was gone, she discovered more mysterious issues, such as not casting a reflection and discovering there is now a copy of the handbook for the recently deceased on their coffee table. I love this part because she's like, when she's showing them that they're not doing a reflection, and she does the horse across, and she makes it go boop, boop, boop. It like makes it walk, and it's just sitting there bouncing up and down. That part always made me laugh. Like, I'm like, they're supposed to be dead, and I'm sitting there cackling in the movie theater because it's a stupid horse.
And it was kind of a double whammy, because then he goes, "Oh, the recently deceased."
And she's all
like, no,
deceased. They do come to the realization that they didn't survive the crash, and they attempt to decipher the book, but it reads like stereo instructions and doesn't really offer them much help at this time. So we cut to a voice and a pair of arms looking through a newspaper. It's called the Afterlife Report. I thought that was really, really cute. And it's reporting that sandworm incidents are up 13% from last year. The picture reflects the monster that we saw in the sand, so we can assume that is what Adam saw in the sand. So, sandworms.
I really like this. Yeah, the voice, because it belongs to Beetlejuice, as we find out later on or
Right.
anything. But he goes, "Oh, cute couple, look nice and stupid."
Nice
too.
and stupid. Yep.
It was so funny to me.
He's stating that he needs a job, and he turns to the obituaries where he sees the Maitland's pic, and just like you said, he says they look nice and stupid. We then do cut back to Adam working on his miniatures set in the cemetery, trying to figure out how to put them in their funeral together, while Barbara tries to clean in vain. Like nothing will clean. Like she's beating on the couch and there's dust everywhere, and she's like, "Well, the vacuum's in the garage."
I don't know how you would vacuum dust, or like, I don't know.
Either way, Jane stops by to mourn. And they yell to her from the window, but she doesn't see them, of course. Barbara reveals that the handbook advised that the living usually won't see the dead, and won't is very important. Not can't, won't. I do love how the detailed things are with the dust poofing when like Barbara sits, and stuff like that, which is kind of weird because of course they're not really there, so it wouldn't really. But the fact that that is you can see that the house is just becoming a mess. I think is just attention to detail by Tim Burton. That's really good. So apparently the dead do sleep, because the next scene we find the couple being awaked by earth-shaking moving trucks arriving at the house. We're introduced to Delia and Charles Dietz and their daughter Lydia. Charles loves the house as is, but Delia advises that she will go crazy if she doesn't get to redo the house, assisted by Otho. They really want to redesign the whole thing.
See, when I had first watched this, I hadn't realized like how much time was passing between all these scenes, because they go through and there's like subtle things where they'll mention how many, like if it's been months or it's been a couple of days, weeks, and at first I was like, man, it's not even been a day since they've been dead, and already you got these people moving back in. It was like her cousin had just hit them up and was like, yeah, come on, go and check it out, maybe you can convince them to leave type stuff. So I hadn't realized that so much time had passed before they had moved in. But I thought this was kind of like that classic kind of family dynamic. You get the rich parents who have a lot of money and don't get enough time to their kid.
Right.
And I mean,
I like how Otho came in through the window. He doesn't come in through doors in the new house. That like set the tone for who Otho was from the jump. He is a freak, and you know he's very eccentric, and he knows all the weird stuff. And I really dug Otho, and I am sad that the guy that played him is dead.
Yeah.
While Otho and Delia walk around deciding what to do with each of the rooms, the Maitlands try to scare them with what Juno later refers to as parlor tricks. I guess it really doesn't matter what they do. If they won't see them, then they're not going to be scared. They do attempt to make it to the third floor. However, Adam's headless body runs upstairs and gets the doors closed in time. Barbara tries to leave, and she ends up in the place with the sandworms. And Adam helps her get back to the door. Which was, I mean, that was she had enough of them, and she was like, I'm out of here, I'm leaving, I don't care, and she ends up with the sandworm coming at her, and she slaps the worm in the face.
Yeah, that has me kind of curious of like, when they open the door, they must see just normal outside area and not sandworm area, because otherwise why would they step into it, you know? But
yeah, and you could tell at this point in time too, when they had to have been gone for a little bit of time again, because when we come back, the Dietzes are eating dinner. They had ordered Cantonese, I think is what it was, that they had ordered for dinner. So we went from where it was daytime to later in the evening. So I like that they still kind of stayed consistent with how time, when they're on that planet, time goes a little bit faster. Or I say planet, but...
sandworm.
Yep. So, time is going by. The remodel is underway of the house. While outside taking pictures, Lydia spots the couple through the window in the attic. Jane comes and gives the skeleton key to Lydia, which will open any door in the house. Now, this is a great scene. I really love the attention to detail in this one because as Lydia approaches the car, the little girl in the back seat rolls the window up as if, nope. Like she has no time for Lydia whatsoever. She's like,
That little girl was a jerk too. She was just like, yep, they're dead.
Yeah, she had the same name as her mom. She was just called Little Her. So in the credits.
Oh.
Yeah. So Little Jane, I think, or Young Jane or whatever, but either way it was Little Jane, I'm pretty sure. I'm like, man, you don't even have an original name. You're just Little Jane. Little name. Yeah. Anyway, so during this time, the Maitlands find a folded up flyer for Beetlejuice in the handbook, but Adam pronounces the name wrong, so nothing happens. Lydia does make her way up to the 3rd floor with the key and attempts to open the door, but the couple is able to fend her entry off. Which was weird to me the way that they did that, because sometimes you would see the doorknob going, but then she was just sitting there on the other side, like listening. So not the best fluidity, I guess you'd say, of the movie, but anyway, it works. So while this is going on, an old broken down TV plays an ad for Beetlejuice telling them how to contact him. You see his name kind of like flashing on the TV. A couple times. It's like an old 70s used car dealership commercial. I really like that. I mean, he's sitting on the fake cow and he's got the rope.
I like the cow sound effect go moo while it pans over. It's all trash like that.
It's complete 70s, like UHF when they were first, the movie UHF with Weird Al. You've never seen it, I'm sure. When they're first selling ad space on their channels. Like this car dealership's like, if nobody comes down here and buys a car in the next hour, I'm going to club this baby seal. And the seal starts nodding like he's going to do it. It's horrible. Like that's how all of the game shows and everything, like that movie is just ridiculous.
But I think that wasn't he. It also was to show that he was on his mini town,
right? Because you can actually see the fake grass and all of that. Yep. So I guess you can kind of see that that's where he's at, and maybe they make that connection. So Adam has discovered that the book gives instructions for an emergency situation. Basically, you draw a door and knock 3 times. He does, and a door to the other world is opened up, or the netherworld, or whatever you want to say, the afterlife, however you want to say it. Lydia does see the lights under the door and attempts to tell her dad, but he has no time for it. She's like, I'm glad you can live in a house with ghosts, but I can't. We do find that the Maitlands in a waiting room that is filled with colorful characters that look to have died in some horrific way. Like all of them. Like there's like a guy in a sleeping bag with like a rattlesnake tail up on it.
I thought that part was really creative.
And the guy that's all burnt up. You want a cigarette? I'm trying to cut down my cigarette.
Yeah.
He's all burnt up. It's like, what did you do? The lady that's cut in half, clearly cut in half. The guy with the open heart surgery.
Right. See, this is why I was surprised that you said only 1 million went to special effects and stuff like that, because I mean, all around everything so far has been like when they really hit this part of the movie, everything starts to really pop more. The colors start to pop more. You got really cool looking like dead people. I mean, and then they go up to the receptionist, and she's bright pink and with green wings or something like that, I think. But I mean,
or she was like Miss somebody. She was like a state somebody.
Right. Well, very visually appealing nonetheless. I mean, something that kept me wanting to keep looking. So, and I think that's a key part of any movie.
I think you always bring that up, and I like that you always bring that up, that the attention keepers, for especially for kids and for younger people,
right.
Something, bright and shiny on the screen makes you pay attention to it. It's not just, brown, tan and taupe.
Right, which I think it was a good contrast, because the country cows that they usually, it's very... The colors palette is all the same. It's all
bland.
It's those brown, tan colors, which I mean reflects back on the characters. They're bland people. Right. They just want a nice life. And then you have the deets that show up, that come in and they're. I mean, Delia's wearing brighter clothing. He's wearing more fancy. He's more relaxed because he wants a country life.
Right.
But I mean, then you have Lydia, who's wearing all black, which is a sharp contrast as well to anything. And so I think it was just a good, little thing that the movie added to it.
I gotcha. So the receptionist tells the couple that they only have 3 help vouchers to use with Juno, their caseworker. She's not nice at all. And it seriously reminds me of the DMV. Waiting forever with people you don't want to be around, who don't want to be around you, only to find out you forgot something. Like, how many times have we been there? They're like, okay, well, you got this, this, and this. Do you have this? And you're like, no, I didn't see it. Oh, well, hold on one second. And sometimes they can still work you through, but either way, they always seem like they're just completely no time, impatient, ready for the next thing. They just want to be off. They don't want to deal with you and your lack of having your paperwork that you needed, like you were supposed to know.
Well, I like this particular scene because the guy that comes to bring him through, he's all flat and he's like, "How do I look?"
I'm feeling a little flat.
I'm feeling a little flat. And he's like, "Oh," and then zooms away.
Well, they put him into a file thing.
Yeah, like, right.
And it goes,
he gets filed away.
When he's in there, gets so stuff. There's no mirrors on this side. I feel a little flat. It's just like, that's so stupid, but at the same time. And I like also how they didn't have their book. It just, bring your manual, come to the 8th door, or whatever door it is that he says, and we forgot our manual, and everybody in the room is all,
and they pan over, and suddenly everyone has that book, and I didn't notice that. If they had came in and they had books, but you look back and literally everyone else is reading or in the book or someone, and it's like amateurs.
They get so, we forgot our book. Judged. So, meanwhile, Lydia is breaking into the attic and finds the miniature town that Adam has built. She also finds the handbook and reads it, because she says later, she's like, well, I was looking through that book. Barbara and Adam are still waiting to see Juno, and there is a conversation about what happens when you die and how it is personal. This is before the guy comes to get him, but it would seem that killing yourself causes you to have to do some type of servitude in the afterlife.
Which I thought that was funny, because she raises her wrist, and it was like, I wouldn't have my little accident, and everyone's like, ha 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 ha. And then later, Delia makes a comment where she was like, I hear that if you kill yourself or maybe it's
the Asian girl that's at the table. She says,
she's like, I hear you'll be a servant.
A civil servant. You have to be a civil servant.
And I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah,
but
it's true.
I thought what was interesting is also in that room you've seen how everyone's dead, or you see the guy who got ran over by the car, and it's all based on how they died, or like the guy who was all red in the face because he choked on the chicken wing.
Frarendok.
Right.
Yeah. The boat's still in there.
They had drowned, but they weren't
all wet.
Well, yes, but they weren't like blue, like you would be if you drowned.
I got you.
Or paler, at least. Anything. They were just normal looking. Which, before you had told me that they had drowned, like, at first I theorized maybe they had just, like, been crushed by the car, and so maybe it was something that knocked them out, but they were just pretty much unscathed, for the most part.
That's a good point. That's a real good point. Everybody else that was dead in there looked like they did when they died, versus them. They're dry and just normal looking. But I guess it would be hard to shoot an entire movie with them soaked.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, they could have, in a sense, been bluer or something like that. But I mean, it is what it is.
I like that. You have to always remember it's just a movie,
right? I mean, but like that's just something that I had noticed being older now versus back then.
Right. So they come across a door that is full of souls that have been exorcised, which is death for the dead. They're told by the guy that's like cleaning up, and he's like mopping, and he's like, "That's death for the dead."
He also said there were demons in there.
Did he say there were demons?
Yeah, he said it was for the souls who had been exorcised and demons.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll have to listen to that again.
I'm pretty sure because I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. What qualifies you as a demon versus a ghost? What's the difference there?"
After seeing this, they reach the door they were told to go to and find that they are back home, and it's been 3 months. The house is completely changed now, and Juno discusses with them about what they need to get rid of the Dietzes. She also tells them about Beetlejuice and proclaims him a freelance bioexorcist, and that he's nothing but trouble.
And was her partner back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I missed that. Yeah. The first time I watched this through. I really liked Juno's character because she shows up multiple times. And I like to see the different characters they bring in that are in the afterlife to see like the different ways they died and such. Well, I hadn't noticed how she had died. She has a cut across her throat, and every time she starts smoking, there's smoke coming out of it instead of like also her mouth. And I thought that was really funny. But I mean, I really liked her character.
Yeah, she says, I decide if help is warranted and available and needed and available. And he's like, oh, are you available? And she says, no.
Everyone's a real jerk in the afterlife.
Everybody is a jerk in the afterlife. Like, and that's why I say it's kind of like the DMV or like, you know, somewhere where you have to go, or maybe a hospital or something like that, where people are just really any kind of customer service, I guess, where people don't really, you're necessary they're there, but man, do they not want to deal with you?
Yeah, I really like this because they still give like some answers. Like she's like, yeah, well, everything's in the handbook, but also this is what you need to do to get them out. Whereas in like Labyrinth, she's going through and she's like, can you tell me how to get to the castle? And no one's telling her how to get to the castle.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting because typically you have where you can't just tell the character straight out how to fix their problems, but you just can't tell them anything. But in this, they did tell them.
Well, she tells them, she's like, yeah, you know, start simple, use what you know, do this, that, and the other, but you know, I don't know what to tell you about, you know, tearing your faces off. If they don't see you, they're not going to see you. And she does really kind of break that down for him.
Which I thought was nice.
Goes into Beetlejuice. She does warn them not to ask for his help. But she does pretty much, I guess she helps them, but overall she doesn't really help them. And then she leaves. I like also when she's talking about Beetlejuice and the lights start coming up and Adam looks around like,
yeah, he's like, what's going on? Yeah. I thought it was funny because before he asked her a question, and then she just leaves.
Right. Well, how do we get a hold of you again? And she's just like, wow. Yeah.
At first I thought she was going to say something like, oh, you don't, or, you know, you don't get a hold of me again, or something like that, but then she just disappears.
Smokes out. There's a great little cutscene where a fly lands in the cemetery and gets eaten by Beetlejuice.
I thought this was horrible as a child.
It yells, help me, help me, help me, like from the original The Fly. That's a reference.
Help me, help me.
And then he goes,
I thought that was horrifying. The whole scene. Giant fly, not a fan. Giant fly gets eaten, definitely not a big fan. All of it was horrible. Because he sticks out the thing.
Zagnut.
Yeah, the candy bar. Yeah. And he's like, you want this?
You want something delicious?
And he just grabs them. It's horrible.
Pulls them in.
Horrible.
Help me! So the Maitlands decide to cut holes in sheets, old school style, and try to scare the Dietzes. But once again, they just don't care. Lydia does actually catch them and photographs them and notices that they have no feet in the pictures. The great thing is this is timely because she is using a Polaroid camera, which screams 1980s. I know that they remade those cameras so you can have instant pictures again. Yeah. Like they put them back out like, oh, this is new. And everybody was like, oh, I think you even got one.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, I guess maybe late 70s, 80s, when Polaroids really came out, like that was really just the thing, man. You could take a picture, snap, and here's the picture. You wave it for about 2 minutes. Picture pops up on it. You're like, oh, yay, this is...
I really like Lydia. I thought she had, like, the moments that she was able to express her character, I think she expressed it really well. I think Winona Ryder played her really well. Because she was, I mean, really young at that point, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the character, it was an excellent portrayal, in my opinion.
That's cool.
I mean, you got the completely emo child, and she played it really well. Yeah. I mean, her outfits also were, like, really funny, in my opinion.
They always looked like she was going to a funeral.
Yeah, she always looked like she was going to a funeral or mourning something.
Yeah, well, what's cool about her is she can actually see the Maitlands, and she confronts them, tells them it's going to take a lot more to scare my parents.
I love when they dress up as the ghost and they're going through, and then she bangs on the wall and she's like, how can you stand that woman? And she's in the other room trying to scare.
And they're all, ooh, wow. And she's like, I'm a child.
I'm a child, for God's sake.
Yeah. She does, she tries to tell her stepmother about the ghosts, but of course, Delia is more worried about her dinner party than she is ghosts. In fact, she's kind of mad that Lydia is bringing this to her.
Yeah, I really
you're telling
don't
me we have ghosts?
Her.
Ghosts? So, but that's the mom from Home Alone, man.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, you make me so sad. Sometimes. Is it? Yeah. That's yes. But anyway.
Well, she sucked here. She's a terrible mother.
I love. She's a great stepmother, though. I mean, she really does show it where it's. Like,
oh yeah, for the stereotype of stepmothers.
She cares but doesn't. Yep. Yeah. So, feeling there is no other choice, the Maitlands decide to enlist the help of Beetlejuice, but find that he is obnoxious and not at all what they wanted. They're pulled into the model after saying Beetlejuice 3 times, and it's an interesting interaction Barbara has. You know, I think that the whole thing is just really it's a really quick played scene.
I love it.
Like so you have to watch that scene because there's like banter. It's just like bam, 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 bam. Yeah. Like he's hitting them out of the park. They're saying, "Well, can you be scary? Oh, can't be scary." You know.
Yeah. Yeah,
scares the heck out of him. You know,
rats out of his pockets.
Yeah,
can you hold this?
Yeah, hold this for me. And it's learn to throw your voice. I mean, it's just it is so fast, and it's Michael Keaton, and I don't know how much of that was ad lib versus whatever, but man, he is on point.
My favorite scene comes from this actually is when his it's all quiet, his head starts spinning all crazy, and he grabs it. He's like, "Whoa." Don't you just hate it when that happens?
Right.
And man, I was laughing so hard. It's great. And they're like, okay, we need to leave.
It's just so random. It's just, You hate it when that happens? And he's like, all right.
Because he grabs the way he grabs his head with his hands, you're just like, whoa.
Yeah. So they're getting frustrated with it. Barbara ends up saying home 3 times. They're returned to normal size. Beetlejuice still thinks he's there. So he's talking to him. And he's like, oh, I can tell you've been to Saturn because before she says home because she's got sand on her. Yeah. So we actually learn that that's where they're being transported to when they leave the house. That they go to, I guess, a moon of Saturn, or they go to Saturn where the sandworms are. So,
could you imagine if that's actually what's there?
Giant sandworms?
Yeah.
No.
I would hate it. I don't want to go.
Also, being a PG-13 movie, you get the first golden F-bomb, as I like to say. It's said by Beetlejuice. He kicks over the tree. He's nice effing model.
Oh, yeah.
And the tree's just laying there. Adam picks it back up, puts it back in the hole like it's supposed to be.
Which I thought that was kind of funny, actually, because at certain times, when they pan back to him being small in the model, he's there. But when he puts it back on the tree back on, he wasn't there.
It's just one of those things, I guess, because when she's talking to him later and he's looking up at her, and she's just all big and he's all small, and he's yelling, "I don't want to deal with you losers anyways," but we'll get into that. So Barbara says she has an idea to get rid of the Dietzes anyway without Beetlejuice's help, which is kind of weird. Why ask for him and then say, "Well, I already have an idea," right on the back of it, but. Either way, maybe she had the idea and she wanted him to help with it.
Or maybe she came up with it while he was talking.
Right.
So he gave her the idea.
Like, oh, we can do this. So Otho makes a passing comment about how those who commit suicide as civil servants are civil servants in the afterlife. So it's Otho talking to the agent girl because she's talking about how she wants to
kill herself.
Right.
He was like, maybe it'll be one of your dreadful suicide attempts.
Yeah, it's like giving her, like, riding her butt. They're both riding each other's butt about it.
Yeah.
But now I wouldn't have had my little accident line that the lady said that makes sense now.
I really like this dinner scene because Delia turns to, I guess, her agent, which I didn't know was her agent until like this time I watched it. But she turns around and she's like, "So, you like him?" And he looks at him like her sculptures, which I personally am a big fan of her sculptures. Right. I love them. And she was like, "Oh, you love them." He didn't even say it, but his face says it all.
You love them? Oh, you love them. And he's all, not so much.
Yeah, I love this scene.
This is also the scene where my favorite line from the movie is said. There's a conversation where one of the guests are making fun of him, and he says, "Don't mind her. She's just mad because someone dropped a house on her sister," which is the correct Wizard of Oz. She's the Wicked Witch of the East. And I think that made me laugh so hard as a kid. And I used to say it. Again, another line that I stole from a movie because, I do that.
Yeah.
Lydia does try to tell everyone about the house being haunted, but Delia plays it off as being kid stuff.
Which I think that goes into a part of what you said in a earlier episode where you talked about how one of the conflicts that arise is where you have the kids who can see something going on and nobody believing them.
Yep.
And so her being able to see the ghost, which wasn't really an issue on her end, which is more of a like, oh, they want us gone, not really like the ghosts are trying to kill us type thing. But I thought that was interesting how the movie still incorporated that type of conflict into the movie.
Right, because she's she tries to tell the dad before she realizes that she's going to like the Maitlands. It's haunted, and she's trying to say, "Hey guys, this is going on," and nobody wants anything to, but that's okay because Delia, after saying, "I don't want to talk about this anymore, I want to change the subject," breaks out into song and dance, possessed by the Maitlands, and everyone joins in except Lydia, who's watching from the corner. So again, that's when we have our Deo song, our banana boat song, as you say, which is, I mean that took off, man. In the 80s, everybody was singing that stupid song after this movie and doing the dance, and everybody was like, "Oh man, we should try and do that at our dinner party. That would be fun." And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't think that would be great. They do conclude the dance by grabbing their faces with the shrimp cocktail hands,
which were horrible,
and then tossing them backwards. And then the Maitlands, you see them run off into the attic to watch them scatter, thinking that, oh my God, these people are going to take off. Terrified. There's nobody that's going to have something like that happen, and I'm going to be, okay with it.
Yeah, personally, I would not have been okay with it.
Yeah,
well, which I really like about this movie is that they'll do something that's really funny and humorous, like the dance, and then end it with something horrifying, like the shrimp hands, which was terrifying. I mean, that things like that as a child. I mean, I don't want to be eating something and then they come up and grab me.
Right, especially shrimp.
Right, and for them to be knocked over like that after something happens, I just don't. I don't understand how you recover like that.
Right.
But I really like that about this movie is that they throw things like that in, where it's that good blend of humor and horror.
I don't know, man. I know that I jumped when those hands came up out of the bowl and grabbed their faces. I know that right along with them screaming, I was screaming as well because holy cow, there was no way that I expected to see that come up like that.
Right. That contrast between having everyone's dancing and having a good time, and then monster murder hands come up.
Black tarantula.
Yeah.
He's all it's funny. Unfortunately, the Dietzes and the guests are not scared, and instead they want to meet the ghosts.
Yeah.
The Maitlands refuse, so the guests leave, and Delia's outraged. Like, she's beyond pissed about the fact that the ghosts wouldn't cooperate. And this is also, you were talking about the not producer, but her agent.
Yeah.
And he says, "I've consistently lost money on you."
Yeah.
She's like, "What do you mean? I thought you loved my work."
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's never said that he loves your work. He
just sits there and suffers.
He says, "You're a flake. You've always been a flake. You'll always be a flake."
I like moments like that because he'll or something will go to the husband Tinder for, I think, what is it? Charles to say something and boost her up and be like, "Yeah, your work is good," and he just stays quiet. He's like, "Well,"
right. So Delia demands that they go to the attic to confront the ghosts, where Charles finds the motto of the town and Otho steals the handbook. Then they leave out, not having found the Maitlands because she doesn't want to scare them off. But they get to the stairs to the first floor, and they're confronted by Beetlejuice because he decides, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to take over because you guys, you're dumb."
This goes into another one of those things, what I mean when I say horrifying, because he, as that snake thing, the rail, it was scary to me. He looks genuinely scary. It's not like, it's borderline between that creepy and that scary that I was talking about last episode with the clowns. His face is just, it's awful to look at.
With those teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's all creepy, he's got the snake tongue, which, I like snakes, but
not Beetlejuice face snakes.
Not Beetlejuice face snakes, no. I would have been like, "Help me," like the fly. However, within this scene, everyone's all startled and crazy, and but Lydia, after it ends, not to jump forward, but she runs into this room that's right next to her. When he's coming after before Barbara comes out and calls his name 3 times again, she just in a corner, like next to the room, like, oh, I have nowhere to go. Yeah. So I was like, why aren't you just gonna run into that room like you did afterwards? So
right.
But right. I know a lot happened before that.
Well, right. He drops Charles quite a distance after saying, "We've come for your daughter, Chuck." And he smacks Otho in the ass with his tail, knocking him down the stairs. And then, of course, Barbara shows up, says his name 3 times. Oh, no! And he turns back into the railing.
And then Liddy's all like, I hate everyone. Leave me alone.
Yep, and I like it. Yeah, right. She runs off, and now back in the model, Beetlejuice and the Maitlands have an argument. This is when you have giant Barbara looking down at little Beetlejuice.
Right.
And he says he's interested in Lydia at that point, which was weird that it took that turn. That that he went from just being whatever to wanting to be interested in Lydia. Barbara picks him up and scolds him for his, but he produces a bunch of spikes on his body.
Yeah, I love that.
And she drops him.
Falls into the grass.
Yeah, he's all stuck on his face. So a brothel appears, and Beetlejuice goes to it, and at that same time, the Maitlands are swept away to Juno's office, where she gives them all kinds of hell about being photographed and them trusting the living, and she also about losing the handbook. Yep. She makes them morph themselves into horrific shapes to scare the Dietzes, tells them not to mess with Beetlejuice again, and to get the pictures in the handbook back. So during this time, Lydia is planning her suicide. I guess she feels betrayed by the Maitlands. Her parents don't love her. She's in a strange place. She has no friends. So
I also really like that scene with Juno because you have the football players and they're all like, Coach, where's the bathroom? Right. or they're talking about where she's like, I'm not your coach. He survived. And they rush off somewhere, and then they come back at the end. And
she tells them to get out of here. Yeah. She says, "Get out of here, men's room." Yeah. Are you kidding? She's giving them. She's such an unhappy person. Yeah. Now in her office, and I've watched it so many times. There's a window sitting behind the Maitlands, and it looks like there's people in stands and bones and stuff like that, like observing.
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing?
I thought that was kind of weird.
I've never understood what those characters are doing back there and what the point of that was.
Maybe we just have some kind of dynamic in the background, something to like contrasting.
I got you. I mean, it definitely
part of the
does.
World, yeah. But I thought the football players were so funny because they come back and they're like, "I don't think we survived the crash."
Right. Coach, how'd you guess?
Yeah, but yeah, they pan back and we're back to Lydia writing her suicide note. Is what it seems like.
Yep.
And she has bangs that are just a hate crime.
Oh my gosh.
Pans looking at her. Like, I hadn't really noticed it before this part, but they look like spiky teeth on her head. It's horrible.
It was the 80s. What are you going to do?
That's true. It's true.
Otho is also talking about how Maxie Dean is going to be coming up because they had talked about how they were going to get him up there in the first place before.
Right.
And apparently, I think his wife's name is Sarah. And I guess she's really into death and afterlife and stuff like that. So they've decided that since they've got ghosts, they can get Maxie Dean. It's like their whole thing is to get Maxie Dean up there.
Which at first, I thought that the first dinner party was them with him, not Delia's agent.
Right.
So that kind of threw me off. But watching it again the second time, I realized that was not the case.
Well, you'll know.
I thought it was a very interesting kind of like jump that they just immediately start thinking about how they could use the ghost to their advantage, like opening an amusement thing when they come in the house, they see the ghost and then leave. And so that's why they try to get Lydia to contact the ghost again, that whole big deal. But
right.
I mean, just crazy.
Right. Now, Lydia, after having written her note, she's looking for the Maitlands and she runs into Beetlejuice. He tells her that he can take her to the Maitlands if she frees him. But for whatever reason, he can't tell her, he can't say his own name.
Maybe it's a thing between him and the living.
Maybe. But maybe he just isn't allowed to say his own name. I don't know. But he plays charades to get her to guess. That's how he's like, first word, 3 syllables.
Like, look behind you.
Turn around and look behind you. And it's giant beetle.
Yeah.
I'd have been out right there.
Drinking like coffee or something.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. And then explodes.
I have no time for that whatsoever.
That was really funny.
the Maitlands are coming back to the house and have decided that they don't want to scare off Lydia because they like her. So they walk in just in time to stop Lydia from saying Beetlejuice for the third time.
While also in horrifying, their drawn out faces and everything.
Right. Now, again, this gets into the whole rules thing of like gremlins and like feeding them after midnight. Like, isn't it always technically after midnight? Like, what is before midnight? What exactly constitutes saying Beetlejuice's name 3 times? Like, what if I said Beetlejuice, you said Beetlejuice, and like someone else said Beetlejuice? Is that 3 times? Does that count? Does it have to be the same person?
I guess it has to be the same person and all at the same time.
Charles and Otho interrupt their conversation to bring the model of the town downstairs. This is an important detail for the finale. The fact that they got the model like they did, because it really does play into part when they have it downstairs for them.
Yeah, I like that they came into the room and then was like, okay, we need to take this downstairs, and like broke it, and it was like split in half.
Yeah.
And then
it's sectional.
Carried downstairs so quickly, because then they go downstairs and then the guy's already there. They're giving the presentation.
Maxie Dean. Yep, Charles is giving a presentation to Maxie Dean. Good old Robert Goulet.
Which, I mean, to think about, the first time they went to see Juno, 3 months had passed, or 2 months or whatever, and then they come back. They enter that door, so it makes sense that time would have passed to where he would have been there for the presentation.
Right.
So.
Right, again,
a good way to keep up
that
with
transition, that consistency with that, and I'm going to bring up something about that later. I like that. It really stays well. It really, like the amount of hours passing or the amount of time passing really seems to always coincide correctly, and I think that they did a really good job with that up until another part I'm going to talk about. But yeah, Charles is giving a presentation basically talking about turning the entire town into a theme park centered around the ghosts at the house. Lydia tells them that the Maitlands are willing to live in harmony with the Dietzes. But they're like, yeah, well, we don't need Lydia. We've got Otho. And I really like that, because she's like, Lydia's like, no. And then she's like, oh, never mind. It's Otho, and he gets all put out.
He can't even change a tire. That was so funny.
But then she sees that he's got the handbook, and she does get worried.
Yeah. Right.
So Otho says he needs something personal of theirs, and Delia remembers that she has the wedding clothes that we saw earlier when they first moved into the house. And again, I think that it's weird that they would keep that. Why would you keep that?
Well, I mean, maybe she was going to put it on one of her models or her statues, sculptures.
Yeah, so I have no idea why she would.
She's crazy.
But he says, yeah, why you would keep that, I don't know. And I also don't know why something like this would be in the handbook telling how to do something like this. Right,
especially if it's trying to keep the living out of their world, because Juno makes a big deal about them not being able to finding out that there's life after death.
Right.
So the fact that they would have something like this in the handbook doesn't make any sense.
Right. Why would you tell how to
bring them back to life?
Right. That's really freaky.
I thought it was interesting that the people living, Lydia and Otho, could read the handbook fine, whereas Barbara couldn't, and it read weird.
Right.
Which doesn't make sense to me in that sense of like they should be able to read it fine, and then everyone else should, like the living, should have a trouble reading it.
Exactly. Fine. Also, the fact that it's a physical book.
Yeah.
But again, I guess it makes the movie progress, so there you go.
Yeah.
They have to have progression, and that's how you do it. So first Barbara is exorcised, and then Adam. Otho was able to perform the exorcism, but he has no idea how to stop it. And that's horrible, man. Them getting exorcised is like, she gets all crusty and dried out. I mean, like they're.
I mean, but that was interesting to me, because as a child, I thought that as, it's their actual form, as skeletons, because they're in the cemetery, they're decaying and everything.
Oh.
And so I put that together like that.
Okay.
Clearly, older you did not put that together like
No,
that.
I just thought it was just really gross and sad that they were getting all dried out and falling apart, and
But
her foot shriveling up like it did and stuff like
yeah,
that. I was like, oh my God.
it was very gross.
This makes death look painful, and I don't want anything to do with this. So Lydia, feeling that there's no other option, remembers Beetlejuice in the model, which is now conveniently in the living room. So it was a good thing that they brought it down.
Yeah, right.
She does go to him and agrees to marry him if he helps, because apparently that will keep him free permanently.
I also took that as maybe he was free from his crimes as well. Maybe if like marrying someone from the living balanced something, or maybe it was like a hierarchy thing within the dead.
I don't know. It's just one of those afterlife things that you just have to kind
very
of roll with.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you find these rules out? You know, like, well, I want to stay out forever. I mean, you have to get married to a real person. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I always said if I was going to do this once, it was going to be that.
It was just going to be one time. I don't know. And he even says, well, think of it as a marriage of convenience. You know, I don't really want to be with you, and you don't really want to be with me. I just want to get out of here. You know, in that case, are you really? I mean, it's not like you're bound with anything, and who cares? I mean, Beetlejuice being out doesn't really have any effect on you, and you save Barbara and Adam, so win-win-win.
The dude even says, I now pronounce you as... And then just gets cut off. But, I mean, technically, they would still be married.
Right.
But anyways, I thought it was interesting because this whole thing starts going down. Lights are flashing. Things are going crazy. But her end of the deal doesn't get, like, recuperated. He doesn't fix them first. He just jumps into the whole marriage thing. And it's only... Like, there's no designated scene that gets shown where he's like, okay, Barbara and... oh gosh, what's his name? Adam. You guys can be back to not crippling skeletons.
Right.
They just come back out of it fine.
Well, no, he does. He does knock them out. He says, let's fix them. And he does like a... And their bodies crumble down.
Right, but
they're crumbled. They're still all crumbled.
So I didn't take that as everything's all fixed. I thought that was more of a, oh, joke's on you. I ended it. Like, kind of like genies, if you're not very specific with your wish. So I didn't take it like that.
Well,
but I guess that's what that was doing.
Yeah.
So
she says his name 3 times, and he raises like a sideshow out of the middle of the model, and he knocks Maxie, Dean, and Sarah through the ceiling, assumedly killing them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, through the ceiling they go. I'm just like, well, I guess you're dead. He does stop the exorcism from continuing, which does save the Maitlands, and chases off Otho.
I thought it was funny because Delia calls on him as he's trying to escape, and he's like, Otho, and then it flashes on him. Oh man!
He goes, when he's like in blue,
plaid
or whatever you call that.
It was like a light blue suit,
and
it was just like all one color, but it was like, I guess, horrible to him. He was like, this is horrible, but it was very funny.
He goes, and he runs off. So I mean, at that point in time, like, I guess he does stop the exorcism, but like you said, it's kind of like Genie-esque in the point of where it's not like he put them back to normal. They had to progressively, over time, get better. So, I guess that makes sense, but I mean, he says, well, everything is kind of back to normal, I guess, and he prepares to marry Lydia. So, Charles and Delia are trapped by her art, so they can be witnesses to the marriage. A priest thing is summoned to perform the ceremony.
Creepy priest thing.
You know who plays that guy? It's well, if you've ever seen Friday, it's Mr. Johnson, and if you've ever seen Bad Santa, the one where it's Billy Bob Thornton, and he has the little elf buddy, and they rob them all.
Yes.
That guy, that's him. That's who plays that character. Now, obviously not voice, but that's who's in the suit.
Huh.
Yeah, I thought you might like that.
That is actually interesting.
Little fun things. In the meantime, Barbara and Adam are recovering and attempting to stop the ceremony and by saying his name. Adam is shrunk into the model where he starts a car, and Barbara is able to get 2 Beetlejuices out before she is banished to Saturn.
Dreadfully slowly. Slowly she tries to say his name. It's like, oh gosh. I get what they're trying to do, but they could have made it a little bit better, because she's just like, Beetlejuice, and it's like, pause. And then he does something to her to get her to stop.
Puts the zipper on her mouth.
Yeah. But I thought it was funny when he puts her in Saturn, I guess now is what it's revealed to be.
Yeah.
And the worm makes that noise, and she looks at all angry. She's like, "Oh no!"
Like Godzilla sound. Which, I mean, again, yes, you would think. I mean, I always took it as they're still so worn out that she's not able to get, like she did on the stairs where it was Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice really fast.
Oh, true.
So she's like, because she looks really, she's like, Beetlejuice, so, and he's like, eek, and then he just like, she's sitting there trying to get the plate off her mouth, and he just like goes, psh, and just like wishes her away.
Yeah.
I also thought that it's weird that Adam has a running car.
He takes it from what Beetlejuice had done, so maybe there's some like afterlife magic with it, because Beetlejuice is the one who crashed it in the first place.
Right.
So
Adam takes that car, the toy car, and he runs it into Beetlejuice's foot long enough to distract him, and then Barbara somehow rides the sandworm through the ceiling, eating Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
This is the part that I was talking about that I have a problem with. Every other time that they've gone to Saturn, time has burned by. But she was able to return to pretty much the exact same time that she had been taken away in with the sandworm. That's one of the
true.
Only parts. I mean, not only part, and I get it. I know.
Maybe when you
it's a movie.
Maybe when you get on top of the sandworm, time like rewinds. So you're like driving through space on the worm.
Like the Great Space Coaster?
I guess so. I mean, sandworm, he goes through, comes back out. I felt bad for the house, though, because like the whole roof, sandworm comes out and then destroys the flooring as well. You got people up in the ceiling.
Right.
House is getting destroyed.
The house got thrashed out. But we then cut to what is clearly several months down the road. Lydia is happily attending the school, Miss Shannon's School for Girls, I think is what it's called. Adam and Barbara are working on returning the house to its former glory. Charles is happy in his study, and Delia is once again sculpting, but now she's making Beetlejuice-related art.
Yeah.
Oh, he likes it.
Well, it's also, yeah, which I like that. But if you look in the background, there's also stuff of, like, what looks like awards for her in her Beetlejuice stuff. I'm almost positive.
I'll have to watch that again, because I did not see that.
But you can see stuff on top of his, like, desk.
Okay.
Where it's her... And I think it was because of her sculpture stuff. It was stuff related to her art, because that's what she does.
Nice.
But it was interesting to me seeing that.
Now, this was originally the ending of the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's pretty much how they finished it off. However, the test audience loved Beetlejuice so much that they added the epilogue scene of him in the waiting room where he gets his head shrunk.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, given that is a classic scene, clearly that's what inspired our clip art for the week for our thumbnail.
Our thumbnail, yes.
Where he gets his head shrunk and he's, wow!
Yeah.
Maybe this is a good look for me.
I thought that was actually, what you had talked about in our previous episodes, that feeling of like how everything now is very CGI and crazy, and that it kind of loses that touch of older movies. It was funny because when it's head shrinking, you can clearly see the green screen behind him, like that on his hair and everything. But I still thought that was I thought it was nice though. I liked that.
Yeah. So then we close on Lydia continuing her song. Shake, 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 senora, shake it all the time. Yep. And then the unnecessary football players show up from Juno's office.
I thought that was so weird that they make this huge big ordeal about not letting the people know that the ghost or whatever, and then they're having ghosts all over the house.
That to me, that was a little bit of a ploy to, like, what do they call that? Fan food or
fan service? Or
yeah. Very, very fan service to me, to say, oh, here's remember the the football players. Very unnecessary. So, did you like the ending of the movie?
I did like the ending of the movie. I thought it was nice. It was, but I mean, I still find it kind of weird, or not weird, but like I said earlier, how you have the dynamic of the family originally. You have the two rich parents that don't give the child enough time. And at the end of the movie, it almost seems like Adam and Barbara adopt Lydia and decide to raise her on their own in their house. And the other two are kind of like the ghost.
So you know what's funny about that? There are other endings to this movie that were initially in the script. One of them was where Delia and Charles move back to the city, and they leave Lydia living with the Maitlands.
Oh, wow.
Yep. There's another ending where the Maitlands shrink themselves and live and restore the house in the miniatures.
In the model?
Yes,
oh
in
my
the model.
Gosh.
And so they live in the model. They live out their time in the model, and the Dietzes live in the house. So
I wouldn't have liked that ending.
I would have felt claustrophobic.
I would have felt
that. Oh my gosh!
It's just you and him. Our for Delia, it would have just been, and he doesn't seem to really like her all that much, anyways.
No.
So I can't imagine how that would have been.
Yep.
A good ending.
Yep. I think the way that it ended is good enough.
I liked it.
I'll also say that the original song that Lydia was supposed to sing at the end was "When a Man Loves a Woman."
Oh wow!
Yeah, a very slow, probably to show Barbara and Adam dancing and everything like that, which really does make the movie more about them than it does about Beetlejuice, about their love and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, that would have been a really weird. That's a very slow.
I don't think I would have liked that nearly as much.
It's So, some bit of trivia. So Warner Brothers disliked the title Beetlejuice initially, and they wanted to call it House Ghosts. That's what it was originally. So as a joke, Tim Burton suggested they name it Scared Sheetless. And he was horrified because the studio actually considered using that name.
Oh no.
They almost called it Scared Sheetless. It did win an Academy Award for Best Makeup. Initially, the Maitlands would have been trapped in what seemed like a void filled with like giant clock gears that shredded the fabric of time and every time that they moved. So it was like a giant clock. They would also have to go through a clock world when leaving the house, which some scenes were actually filmed for. You can actually look it up on YouTube. Look at like Beetlejuice Adam in the clock world, and he's like running. It looks like a Mario scene, like Mario, the game, the original side scroller.
Yes.
And he's just like jumping over gears, and like he's like all very like.
Oh.
You can completely tell it's green screen because he's like running in place and like jumping and ducking and everything like that. But they obviously they cut that out.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, good choices. The name of the film being spelled as Beetlejuice as it is, Betlejuice, instead of Beetleguys. I say Beetleguys, but it's still Beetlejuice. Like the star that in the sky, of course.
Yeah.
People would know how to say it. They literally dumbed it down for the audience sake because otherwise Beetleguys, people would be like, Beetle guys.
Yeah, like Adam did.
Exactly.
First.
Like, yep. Beetlejuice inspired one of my all-time favorite cartoons of the same name. It was different in function, mainly that Lydia summoned Beetlejuice to hang out, and they would go on zany adventures, and the Maitlands did not exist in the cartoon.
Oh.
But I used to watch this religiously in the mornings. It was a really good show. She would go, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Then he would show up and they would do all kinds of stuff. And there was different types of animation used. It was very beginning of computer animation and such. And there's some of that in there too. So it was really an interesting cartoon. And if you have the special edition, the 20th anniversary edition of Beetlejuice, there's some of the cartoons episodes are on it if you look. I don't know if any other ones, but definitely that one. There were supposed sequels that have been pitched and confirmed and dropped several times. The last time there was any word on this seems to be around 2017.
I don't know what you would sequel.
Right. Well,
I mean, I don't understand.
So initially it was going to be like in Hawaii or something like that. Yeah, it was like Beetlejuice in Paradise or something like that. Really nothing unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's where Hollywood has a movie. It did really well. They want to cash in on it. Yeah. You know, if we can, have a budget of 15,000 and we can make 30,000 again, well, great. We made 30,000. So we might as well, because we don't have anything else original to do. Now, you probably aren't going to know who this was, but Tim Burton originally wanted Sammy Davis Jr. to play Beetlejuice. He was part of the Rat Pack. He was He hung out with like Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis and those guys. He was 63 at the time. However, the producer David Geffen suggested Michael Keaton, and Burton just fell in love with him, which is why he used him again in Batman and Batman Returns later on. So, what are your overall thoughts?
Again, it's just a fantastic movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. It had that perfect blend between creepy, scary, funny, entertaining. I mean, everything about this movie is visually pleasing. I mean, it's a good movie.
Gotcha.
The acting also was much better than most of the movies we've seen so far. I mean, and I think it had for the budget it had, I think it did a pretty good job. Like the effect wise, and I mean, I watch this movie all the time.
Yeah,
I love this movie.
Who was your favorite character?
Beetlejuice. I mean, he's just so funny to me. I mean, he's kind of creepy, but I think he's just it's like the fun uncle. Nobody really wants him around, but when he's around, it's kind of a good time.
There were a lot of actors and actresses put through, and there was a lot of actresses for the part of Lydia. And I didn't really go into it because there were so many. I welcome you to look it up and take a look. But yeah, they finally finished on her because they had seen her in another movie Tim Burton had, and he was like, "Oh, I like the look of this girl for being a what do you call that? That kind of look, not noir, goth. Jeez, I couldn't think of goth.
Yeah.
So, of course, we have our moos. Best of 5, 0 to 5. How many moos do you give Beetlejuice?
5.
You give it 5.
I give it 5.
You slam it out of the park.
I love this movie.
I'm gonna go with 4.5 again. I don't know that I have a 5. I feel if you say 5, then everything has to be a 5.
Well, this is. I mean, I guess that's fair. But this is again one of my favorite movies. I mean, it's a movie that I watch a lot. I mean, and a lot of movies I can't do that to, where you go back and you can see it. But I could watch this movie twice in 1 year.
I got you.
If it's playing on TV downstairs, I watch a little bit, I'll go back to my room. Stuff like that. Most movies I don't.
I got you.
So
that makes a lot of sense.
I like this movie.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap this one up tonight. I do want to thank everybody for stopping by, as always, and listening to our 4th episode. We deeply, deeply appreciate it, more than you could imagine. And of course, the best way to say you love us is to do what, Beth?
Leave us a 5-star review and like a written review on Twitter. Or not Twitter, oh my gosh. iTunes.
Twitter's fine.
Sorry, that was just so much at once. Yeah. We have stickers now that you can actually get one for free if you send us a email proving that you did a 5-star review and a written review as well on top of that, and we will send you a sticker.
We do want to thank, and I only have screen names for thanking for the people that have written us the 5-star reviews so far. We have the Red Banshee, we have Sanderpats, we have Gidonk Man, we have DNA, and we have JetCat19. All of those people have left us written reviews, as well as the ratings, like a 5-star and everything like that. We've gotten nothing but 5 stars, thank God, so far, which we greatly appreciate.
Really helps us out.
But like we said, you send us an email to the Yesteryear podcast at gmail.com, and you send us with a screenshot of who you are, especially the Red Banshee, because I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Send us your information. We'll get you a sticker out. We really appreciate the fact that you took the time. I know it's not easy. If you have an iPhone, it's a little bit easier. If you have a MacBook or something like that, it's a little bit easier to leave an iTunes review. But if you don't, you have to literally create a login, go in, log in, all that kind of stuff through the website. And, we take the time to download it. And we really appreciate the fact that somebody would do that for us,
for sure.
for putting a podcast out. So, you can always get a hold of us You can email us, as I said, at the Yesteryear podcast at gmail.com. Still have not received any emails from any listeners. We are doing some stuff where we're, potentially having some sponsors put out and stuff like that. So those people have reached out back to us, but not any listeners. And I really want some listener emails. I really want some constructive criticism. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if we're saying too much, which I feel like I do. Let us know if there's something else. Just let us know. Twitter at twitter.com/yesteryearpcast. Instagram at instagram.com/yesteryearpodcast. Yes?
I just want to say, as I like to do after every movie we watch, is to see if they have a BuzzFeed quiz for it. If you're on our Facebook group, the Truffle Shufflers, you'll see that I actually did post one for the first movie we did where they did have a BuzzFeed quiz for it. Well, there's one for Beetlejuice, and I just took it, and I got Allison the Sandworm. The Sandworm has a name, and it's Allison.
That's fantastic. Yes.
That's great. So I will link that to our Facebook group. Go ahead and definitely check that out. Take the test yourself. Let me know what you get.
Definitely do that. That's awesome. Thank you so much for doing that, Beth. We do have, as you said, the Facebook group at Truffle Shufflers. The secret question is, what is the host names? And that's James and Beth. Our website is yesteryearpodcast.buzzsprout.com. Our Patreon, if you would like to support us in a financial way, which I do have 2 Patreons. I have Jody Sullivan and Dondi Stamp that do that for us, and we welcome more if you'd like to. That's www.patreon.com/the nostalgia group. We call that, something a little different from Yesteryear because we want to have the 2 different things. And of course, we've got different episodes on there that you can enjoy and partake in. Now, we do want to reach out and contact some of the listeners, have some of that kind of go on. So yeah, definitely hit us up on there. Of course, always a shout out to Greg Revan for our intro and outro music. He does that for the Nostalgia Group and for Yesteryear. And is there anything else you'd like to say? Anything else you can think of for the movie? Anything?
I mean, just thank you for the continued support. But other than that.
All right. As always, we love you. Say goodnight, Beth.
Good night, everyone.